And action. Welcome to another incredible episode of the Action Podcast. We are on episode 92, and we've got a big slate. We skipped last week, and it is now piled up. And now we've got a lot of films to review. Now, the first one we have is Spaceman. That's a movie starring Adam Sandler on Netflix now. Secondly, we'll be reviewing Kung Fu Panda 4, which is voiced by Jack Black.
Yep.
Third, we have Ricky Stanicky, which is on Amazon Prime, and that stars John Cena and Zac Efron, among others.
Yep.
4, we have Damsel, which is on Netflix now, starring Millie Bobby Brown. 5, we have Cabrini. 6, we have Imaginary. 7, we have Drugstore June, that stars comedian Esther Povitsky. 8, we have Love Lies Bleeding, which stars Kristen Stewart. 9, we have Outlaw Posse, which stars Mario Van Peebles, written and directed by Mario Van Peebles as well. And lastly, we have Cold Meat, and I know
Cold Meat.
Yeah, I know nothing.
Yeah, we've got a big slate.
Yeah,
let's get into it.
All right. Well, Spaceman. Let's get into it, Pete. What are your thoughts on Spaceman?
So Spaceman is interesting. It's Netflix, and it's Adam Sandler, and it's Carey Mulligan, who I really do believe that she should have won Best Actress because of what she did on Maestro. And you also have Paul Dano as the voice of something that I will reveal in a second. So this story is about this Adam Sandler's character. He's on like this solo mission in space. He's like a half a year into it. He gets to the edge of like Jupiter, and there's like this cloud, this mist that nobody can explain. And his job is to figure out what this substance is and how can it help the human race, etc. However, he's torn because he's trying to understand why his wife won't write him back or call him back. And so like he's distracted. And then all of a sudden, a spider shows up. A big giant spider shows up, and it's Paul Dano, who is, if you don't know Paul Dano is the creepiest, most amazing actor that I think you can ever kind of watch or hear. In this
Riddler in the newest Batman, the Batman.
In the case here, like he's a creepy, amazing actor. And this movie, I feel like this is like the poor man's Interstellar in a way, because this is a redemption or a reconciliation rather movie. Like Adam Sandler's trying to reconcile something in his life, as well as the people on Earth are trying to reconcile something. And so I don't know. I feel like this is a good watch. It got a 5.8 on IMDb, which is like, okay, it's not a 6.
Yeah.
But there is value to it, right? And so I thought that Paul Dano's voice could have been anybody's voice. Carey Mulligan just comes in and crushes whenever she has a scene, and she's always great. Adam Sandler did a brilliant job at acting in this film. I just thought the story was ridiculous. I thought it was silly. I didn't like the story. I didn't like where they went with it, because it kind of did one of those veer lefts. It's good. You should watch it, but it's a bit out there.
I think this film struggled with tone, and I also thought, honestly, like it was just miscast to your point, where it was trying to go. Again, I thought the actors did fine, but I don't think they were the right choices.
Sandler did great.
Right, but I don't think he's the right choice for this role, because, and let me tell you why.
Right.
This felt like, hey, Adam Sandler, we don't want you to be funny at all. You know, your character is depressed and all this stuff.
Yeah, not one funny line. Not one.
And I'm okay with that. But then it's just like, okay, then why get Adam Sandler for this role? Get somebody else, because I think this role needed levity. And I think this role needed The Martian, I think for me was like the comp for this film. And you just see the difference between energy and someone dealing with stuff, but making it entertaining, versus this, where it was just like, it was depressing, but it's like they don't they don't really establish the relationship where you want, I really want this couple to make it work. Like I thought they kind of cheated that
Yeah.
part. And then the other part to it is they're supposed to be Czech. Republic, Adam Sandler has no accent. And then Carey Mulligan is English. And so it's just it throws you off because it's like, wait, they don't even have like the smallest of accents, or and I know it's just a little thing, but it's just like, well, then why make them Czech? Like, why not make them American? You know, like I don't know. That's the choices that I'm talking about. It's just like it doesn't make any sense to go these routes when it's like, all right, like I didn't think Carey Mulligan was good for this role because
No.
she's British. Like, why? And she has a Polish or I'm sorry, a Czech name. And it's like, all right, like, what are we doing here? Like, why are these pieces in place? And this is to me, they didn't fit the characters that they were there. It's like two actors. I don't know. Everything felt kind of forced in that.
Sure. No, and you're right. And the director, Johan Renck, he's done a bunch of incredible work. He did Chernobyl, he did Bates Motel, he did the Vikings, Breaking Bad,
But you know what's funny? That
Walking Dead. Like he's done a lot of great
yeah.
short form episodic stuff.
But that was my issue with Chernobyl was it takes place obviously in Russia slash Ukraine, and everybody spoke English, like not English
Right.
like the language, but like British accent. And
Right.
it's like the Russian accent is literally one of the easiest ones to do. Like
Right.
why aren't they speaking English with Russian
Yeah,
accents?
it was very
It doesn't make any
difficult to
sense.
follow the idea of it being Czechoslovakian without there being any sort of Czech representation other than the names and the history that they were showing throughout. It's still a nice watch.
Yeah,
It's just really weird. It's
it's clunky.
bizarre.
It just felt clunky.
Um, and it's streaming, so it's not going
Yeah.
to cost you anything except for an hour and a half of your life.
Yeah, I think there are elements here that could because it's adapted by a book. I think
And
there are
maybe he's with Sandler, like he's got to deal with Netflix and he had to do something, and he's like, "Look, I'll just do this one real fast." Like I don't know,
well,
but to get Carey Mulligan to do this role, what a waste!
I, I I
Like,
could
what a
see it
waste
being
of time.
appealing for Adam Sandler because he wants to do something different. I mean, I want to do a dramatic role, but again, I think
He's done that.
right, and maybe he wants to continue this. But even like with Uncut Gems, I felt he fit the role more, and,
Yeah.
and he still had his mannerisms where he was funny and stuff like that. I just think it's almost like, and I think it's more. I put this more on Johan Renck because he's the director, but it's like I felt like they were limiting him, and it's like no, I want him likable. Like he wasn't likable in this movie, and I just felt
No,
like
but that I'll argue this one point, and then we could move on because I think that was the point. Actually, was that you didn't want to. I mean, you wanted to see him succeed because you were thrown into this scenario with him initially.
yeah,
But as you start to learn about what he actually did in his marriage and in his relationship with his wife, like you can understand why he wasn't the funny guy, why he wasn't the person that we expected Adam Sandler to be. So it was
yeah.
almost like it kind of threw you off to have Adam Sandler be this character because you expected something. But I thought the role that he played and the way that he played it was actually quite accurate to why his wife was like, I'm fucking gone, dude. Like I'm
No, I
done.
get that part. I get that part. What I'm saying is like when you're dealing with relationship, right? Like even if it's a friend of ours, you have to want you have to see a magic between them where you're like, man, I really want them to work it out versus, you'll find another one, bro. I mean, I totally get like, yes, he was,
No, but there's also the idea of you have a goal, an ultimate goal. Like this is Whiplash, right? Like
yeah,
this is a really awful version of Whiplash where it's like you have an ultimate goal in mind and relationships be damned because I have to accomplish something. The problem with this is that Adam Sandler's character realizes halfway through this trip, oh shit, I just messed up
yeah.
this relationship and the timing is horrible, right? Like there's nothing he can do about it.
And I get all that. What I'm saying is it just didn't work. Like that's kind of the
Yeah.
point I'm trying to make is like I get
Yeah.
all the elements of what it's trying to do, but it's just like it didn't work. And again,
Right.
I think partly is they tried to restrict him too much, and then again, like I just didn't care about the relationship. That's the point I'm trying to make. And
Yeah, I didn't care.
I'm rooting for him, but it's like I
Only
just
because it's Adam Sandler and Carey Mulligan. That's the
yeah,
only reason you're rooting for him, not because of their characters.
right. So that's all I'm trying to say. But it's an interesting movie, I think, nonetheless. Like you're saying, it's streaming. Definitely would say check it out. You
The
have
Paul
nothing.
Dano spider aspect is
Yeah.
interesting.
It's
I
a,
just think it goes way too
I,
far.
there's some good scenes. There's some good lines. There's some poignant moments.
Sure.
Like I said, I think it's overall a kind of a clunky film. It's not a home
Right.
run. I think it's a single. So check it out. Check it out. Next, we have the big release of this week, which is Kung Fu Panda 4, starring, of course, Jack Black. Pete, I did not see this one. What were your thoughts?
Well, you're going to hear a lot of people say, why would you make a fourth if you've already had a trilogy? And I get it. Like we've seen The Matrix, we've seen several other franchises that have done a fourth when they should have maybe stopped with a third. Um, I got to be honest, like I haven't seen the first three Kung Fu Panda movies, not one time. I haven't seen them. I'm in
Same.
animation. That's my job. And I haven't seen those three movies. For some reason, they just haven't been at the forefront of what it is that I've been trying to do. Um, I absolutely loved this movie. I thought this movie was awesome. I thought this movie was put together in a way that was interesting. I thought the animation was phenomenal. I thought the acting was great. I mean, Jack Black is always good, but he's very subdued, Jack Black, as this character Poe. Awkwafina, I thought, you know, people complain about Awkwafina about the way she talks and the way that she does voiceovers and stuff like that, but I love Awkwafina because I understand what she's doing as an actress, as a voiceover actress. There's a style to Awkwafina and what she brings to an animated feature. And if I ever have the opportunity to work with Awkwafina in a movie, I'm putting her in a role, even if it's like one line. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it because she has this class and she has this understanding of language and tone.
And she has a very unique voice too. Like
She's so good.
it's very
Uh,
distinct.
and then outside of those two, you got Viola Davis as the chameleon, who's like the main villain. You got
Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman, you got Bryan Cranston, you got all these great, amazing people.
James
So,
Hong, Ian McShane, Ke
yeah,
Kwan. Yeah.
Ian McShane, that's my dude. Like he's so good.
Yeah.
Uh, so basically, in this movie, Poe, Jack Black, has to find a successor because he's going to become a spiritual leader. And the Viola Davis's character, the chameleon, the evil character, has to basically invoke everyone that Poe has ever killed, and she gets all of their energy and their talent in order to become invincible, basically. And can Poe and Awkwafina, who is Zen, um, can they overcome this massive power? This was a beautifully crafted movie. I loved every second of it. I was excited. You even get Jack Black covering Britney Spears at the end, which is fantastic. This is a great movie. Go see it. Your kids are going to go bananas for this movie, but I think you as an adult would enjoy what they actually did. It got a 6.8. I'm totally in agreement with that.
Yeah.
6.8. I
I
might
thought
give
it
it a
was
7.
6-6, but yeah, either way, it's still
I give it a 7.
that's a good score. That's a
Real
good score.
good.
Next, we have Ricky Stanicky, which, like I mentioned, it is on Amazon Prime now. This, of course, stars Zac Efron, John Cena, Andrew Santino, and it's directed by Peter Farrelly, who, of course, is part of the Farrelly brothers. And we know him, of course, Dumb and Dumber, Something About Mary, among a lot of other amazing films.
Greatest beer run ever.
Yes. And he also recently produced The Green Book, which got him an Oscar, I believe. So,
Fever pitch.
yeah, Fever Pitch. Oh, I love Fever Pitch. Yeah.
This
Uh,
is real fantastic.
we were both looking forward to this film. I'll let you go first, Pete, because you saw this before I did. So,
Me first again. Okay. This movie, it started off a bit weird, but then you start really getting into it. Andrew Santino is somebody that you've seen on podcasts. He's got a great podcast that he does.
might have seen
Uh,
him stand up too. I've seen a lot of stand up.
with Bobby Lee. I think it's called Bad Friends or something like that. It's
Yeah, something
fantastic.
like that.
It's
Yeah.
funny. He's got great stand up as well. He's a funny dude, and his mannerisms are classic. Zac Efron is clearly coming straight off of the set of
Iron
Iron
Claw.
Iron Claw because he's jacked as fuck.
He's a
Um,
little less though. He's a little less jacked than he
he's
was
a
in
little
Iron.
less jacked, but he's still jacked
Yeah.
more so than you've noticed.
Still got the
John,
head. Yeah.
you got William H. Macy, who just crushes in this role. And then they sprinkle in like Jeff Ross, who's just
Yeah.
like whatever. Like, it's great to see him in a movie. But the real star of this is John Cena, who just comes in to this movie and decides at some point, I don't really care what you ask me to do. I'm gonna do it. And he puts himself into like ridiculous scenarios, even if it's like 3 seconds of screen time, as a character in a rock and roll, but about dicks and
Yeah.
penises. He's so funny in this movie. So this movie starts off weird, but then you
This
start
might be
getting
my favorite role for him.
totally. When I thought this movie was going to end, which was sort of, and when you watch it at the end of the bris, I thought that was the end of the movie. But then the movie really gets started,
Yeah.
and then it becomes this movie that you're really engaged in. It only got a 6.1 on IMDb. I'd go a little bit higher because of this sort of journey that it takes you. I thought the characters really worked well together. I thought the comedy was there. I thought the
It's deep. It's
performances
deeper
were
than
really
you
good.
would think. Like
It's it's
the
good.
movie's deeper than you think. Like you're saying, I think the characters are actually, um,
They're deeper.
yeah, there's some richness to the characters, which again, I think that's really like you can that's Peter Farrelly, like compared to somebody else, which is just maybe it on a comedy level. Like this could have been a very whatever comedy,
It could have
uh,
been a disaster.
but I think again with Peter Farrelly at the helm and also helping writing it, that's where I think you get the richness of it, and it's not just dick jokes and stuff like that. I think there's some real
Well,
areas.
Fairly's focus on the even the smallest of characters is prominent, right? Like when you're watching one of his films, like even the smallest character comes in and just crushes
Yeah.
for like one scene, and you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. This is a great watch, and it's fun. It's on Amazon Prime. You could literally go see this right now and have a blast. And I thought it was well executed. You had to get through a little bit, but then all of a sudden you're like, I know why you did that, and this is great. I love it.
Next, we have Damsel. That's on Netflix now, and that stars Millie Bobby Brown.
Right?
Um, I'll tell you what, I didn't have any expectations for it. Honestly, I didn't even know it was out. I just literally turned on Netflix and it
Yeah, it
popped
just
up.
popped up.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess. And then because sometimes you get like foreign films, like you don't know like what level of this film is, and so I was curious on the level of it, and then I started watching it, and I was like, wow, okay, like this doesn't look bad. Like this might be an okay movie. And I didn't really know anybody that made it. It's not by huge people. The director Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, he did 28 Days Later. That was like the most
No,
notable.
it 28 weeks later,
28 Weeks Later. Those are two different movies.
which is the sequel, because 28 Days Later was the one with Cillian Murphy, which was
Yeah,
iconic,
yeah, yeah. Uh,
right?
but there were some good actors in this film. Ray Winstone, Angela Bassett, Robin Wright.
Robin Wright,
Yeah. So I
come
was like,
on.
all right. I was like, all right,
And Millie Bobby Brown, this is star.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was like, okay, let's watch this. So I started
Here we
watching it.
go.
I really kind of liked the setup, and I thought really honestly, the CGI I thought was much better than I thought. Like this is actually one of the better CGI jobs of a high-end movie. I was like, man, this movie actually looks pretty solid, and it kept me in it.
Right.
And I overall I thought the movie was solid. I enjoyed it. Um, I liked it better than like say The Hobbit, like the second three. I wasn't a big fan of not Lord of the Rings, not Lord of the Rings,
But why would you make a comment like that?
because honestly I didn't like The
I
Hobbit.
like I like Damsel better than The Hobbit parts 2 and 3.
You know why? Because it was shorter too. That's also why. Like it
That,
wasn't 3 hours of just
silly.
drawn out.
That's a silly comment. Keep going. That's
Uh,
so dumb.
my point is I like the fact that it didn't take forever. It kind of
Right.
got you in this new world, but it didn't spend a ton of time on exposition.
Right.
And I don't think it was anything like, I don't think this is like the greatest movie of all time, but I thought it's a solid, entertaining film. Again, because I don't think everybody liked the second Hobbit series. So for me, I liked it more just because it was faster.
Right.
Because the Hobbit's like 3 hours, and you're like, does this need
Okay.
to be 3 hours? And
Right.
and
But
but yeah,
the smartness of this movie was that it brings you into a scenario, and then you're like, okay, I'm here, and then it takes you to another one, and you're like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that, and then it takes you to another one, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't expect that either, and then
yeah,
it keeps doing that throughout.
yeah.
And yeah, it's not a fantastic movie, but it's really a good watch on Netflix. The only problem with this movie is the title. The title
Title's
sucks.
terrible.
Damsel
Yeah,
is the worst. This is a dumb title for this movie. Don't look at this as like she's a damsel in distress. Even though
terrible.
she is technically a damsel who's in distress, but this is completely different than
Yeah,
your typical fairy tale damsel in distress story. This is absolutely completely different. The big actors that um, play a very specific role, and they do a very good job at what they're supposed to do.
yeah.
And this is not bad. This is a very good watch for a
Six
Netflix.
point, yeah, 6.2 on IMDb. And what I like about this most too, and we talk about this with other films, but the budget's between 60 and 70 million. And I think that's
Perfect.
like perfect for I think what
Great.
this film is. And again, that the Hobbit was like a $200 million film. And it obviously made its money, but
And,
still,
and it was better than what you're saying.
not the second one. The second
Stop it.
Hobbit was
Stop it. You can't compare the second Hobbit to Damsel. Stop it. Just
no, the
stop.
second one. You know, there's a trilogy.
No, no, no. I know there's a trilogy,
The
but
second one just ended. It's like, all right, let's
no
just end it
way.
so
There's
we can
no
make
way
more
that you
money.
can compare. I
So we
would
can
rather
make more money
Peter
on a
Jackson
third.
stretch out a one book, 50-page book to three movies than I would Damsel.
You
So
just
stop.
nailed my point, though. He stretched it out. He made three movies out of one book. That was
Yeah,
probably two books. It could have been two movies, and they made it third, and it was
we're
dragged
insane.
out.
Comment below about how batshit crazy Paul's talking right now about how
They dragged it
Damsel
out.
is
Keyword, they
better
dragged
than
out.
Hobbit Part Two. Okay,
There was a
Hobbit
whole
Part Two
movie
versus Damsel.
unnecessary in that.
Let's get a vote going. This is
They
ridiculous.
just wanted to make a trilogy. So like, let's just drag out the
Of
entire.
course, of course. How are you going to make more money?
My
Peter
point is
Jackson
the
wasn't
second
in
one is
charge
not
of
that
that. The
great.
studio was.
My point is the second one's not great. The first one was okay.
You're not great.
The third one was okay. The middle one is like so unnecessary. Just like you're saying, just dragged out. How many times
Right.
have you went back and watched The Hobbit, by the way?
Like a million.
The second trilogy.
No, I don't know. I can't
I've
even.
never seen, I've never gone back and seen it.
Yeah, I don't think I've gone back.
Yeah, that's my point.
Only because I'm starting to read the book with my daughter, and so we started the first one
Okay.
to follow along with what we're reading. But that's it.
All right. Well, let's move on. Next, we have Cabrini, and this is a film from Angel Studios. They also did Sound of Freedom. They're really starting to come out with content. They also just what was that other film they just released that I thought was pretty good?
I don't know, but they're really kind of breaking away from their what
Oh,
people are
Ordinary Angels. We just saw it. Ordinary Angels. And,
okay.
and I
They're
really
really
enjoyed that one.
breaking away from their expected content that they're supposed to be
Yeah.
developing right now, and they're putting out some really amazing things.
Yeah. I really like I like what they're focusing on. They're telling different types of stories, and I think they're doing a great job. And Cabrini, I think, continues this trend upwards of just telling good stories that people need to hear, good content. And this story is a biopic based off of Francesca Cabrini. She's an Italian immigrant. She's a nun that wants to kind of embark on helping people. She wants to originally go to China, but the Pope wants her to go to New York. This is turn of the century New York, 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s, where New York's got the hugest slums, really, really terrible conditions, and
Right.
she's trying to help out orphans and give them a better life. And it's a really awesome tale of courage, perseverance, faith, and it's just a really really good journey. And again,
My
I think
wife, who's from Italy, is very excited about this film. Like she's
yeah,
looking really forward to it.
it was really good. 8.1 on IMDb, but it's got good cinematography. It looks good. I thought the music was great as well. There's even like an original song by Andrea Bocelli, and I don't know if I pronounced that name right, but
Oh,
a lot of
Bocelli is good.
yeah, a lot of positives in this movie. John Lithgow, of course, is also in this. One of my
He
favorite actors.
crushes every time.
Yeah. One of my favorite actors, David Morse. You might know him from The Rock. He's Ed Harris's like right-hand guy.
Yeah,
He's huge. He's like a huge guy. You can
so
tell
good.
he's gotten older because he's not as imposing, but I love
Yeah,
him as an actor. He always has a really good temperament. And but yeah, I highly recommend this movie. Check it out. Like I said, this is just a one. It's a really good, amazing character in American history. She's the first saint American to be named a saint by the church.
yeah.
And so again, just a nice historical tale. I never knew anything about her. So these are just stories that I'm a big fan of as a
Love
storyteller
that.
myself.
Yeah, I
We
love
all need
that.
to hear. So definitely check that one out.
Can't wait to see it.
Next, we have Imaginary.
We
This is
could we could burn through these ones because
yeah.
what's coming up is interesting.
Imaginary is from the producers of Megan and Freddy, Five Nights at Freddy's.
And who's directed by the guy who gave us Kick-Ass 2 and Truth or Dare. This is a woman who returns to her childhood home, discovers that the imaginary friend that she left behind is actually very real and is very unhappy that she abandoned this little bear. This is not a good movie. This is not scary. It's not. It's just boring. There's just not a lot of excitement in this movie, and we knew this when we saw the first trailer of it. I think you and I, Paul, I think at some point we're like, "Oh, have you seen Imaginary?" And I typed it in, and I saw this movie about a bear, and you were like, "No, not that Imaginary, a different movie."
I
And
was
then we were
thinking
like, "This isn't good. This
I was
can't be
thinking of the John Krasinski film.
right." Exactly. This is not good. 4.9 on IMDb, and it's absolutely accurate. It's a tough watch.
Yeah.
This is another example of like a Blumhouse, like just expanding
Too
beyond what it is that is okay.
yeah. Awesome. All right. Next we have Drugstore June. And
Mm,
I got to see this at the I think it's called TCL now, TCL Chinese theaters in Hollywood, where they do a lot of film premieres. But I got
right.
to see the cast there. This has an amazing cast. This essentially is a vehicle for Esther Povitsky and her comedy and to kind of showcase her. And this also stars, you already mentioned Bobby Lee. I believe actually Andrew Santino's in this too. I think he has a small role
Is
in
he
it.
really?
I
Nice.
think so.
They're
Bill
great.
Burr, who also produced this, he's in this one. He has a role as well. He's funny. This to me is like a comedian's movie. So if you
Mm,
like these comedians, I think you'll like this movie. I don't think this movie is going to be for everybody.
right.
Again, I think this is just a piece for comedians to kind of showcase their comedy a little bit in a narrative.
Mm.
Haley Joel Osment is in this one. He's kind of the approach. Al Madrigal,
Okay.
Jackie Sandler, Miranda Cosgrove. Uh, there's there's a lot of good people in this. Matt Walsh is in this one as well.
Who's
Like I
good.
said, this is a good collection of people. I thought this was well directed. It's very stylistic, and I think that helped with this movie. It really was kind of well paced, and so it kind of just kept moving. I thought it was was a funny movie, and like I said, I think if you're into these people's comedy, I think you'll like this movie. So
Good.
watch a little bit of her comedy if you like her. I think you'll like this movie. This was a solid.
A very no holds barred,
Yeah,
risque.
I like these types of films for the same reason that of Cabrini, which is this is just a nice platform for to help exposure for other people. And I like I said,
Sure.
I'm a big fan of films like this, comedy like a film by comedians for comedians type of a thing.
Hmm.
And so again, I liked it. I enjoyed it. We had a good time at the whole thing. They had a good question and answering afterwards. Bill Burr is freaking he's the man.
Dude's so great. He's
Yeah.
my favorite. He's my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun story.
Outside of Anthony Jeselnik, Bill Burr is like my favorite dude.
I love Ancient Jeselnik too. I would love to see
Jeselnik's the
him.
best.
All right, next we have Love
You
Lies.
should write a movie, Paul, where Jeselnik is the star. Come on.
Oh yeah, I'm all
Like,
game for
what can
that.
we do?
Yeah, we'll put our minds to that one. I actually love that idea.
I love
Next we
it.
have Love Lies Bleeding, starring Kristen Stewart. Pete, what do you got?
But this is Kristen Stewart's like go-to movie. Like I feel like she got into the industry to make this movie. It's a good film. And it's really well done and it's well performed. She's really good in it. Ed Harris, who is phenomenal every time, looks bizarre as shit. But he does really well. The girl that plays Jackie, her name is Katie O'Brien, excuse me. And Dave Franco is also in this movie. This is a really intense movie until the very end. It kind of gets slightly goofy, but overall, this is a solid watch. I would watch this. It's not the hype that people are talking about, where it's like, this is the best film of the year so far. It's not, but it's a really good watch, and the performances are fantastic. I don't want to get too much into what the story's about because it's just going to give everything away.
Yeah, don't. I
But
want to see
just,
stuff.
yeah, but just go and see this film and look at the performances because I think that they really did a phenomenal job. The director Rose Class did a movie called Saint Maud, which I don't know if you've seen, which is a weird sort of kind of like a thriller horror poltergeist kind of movie. It's not bad, but this is such a leap in her career to do a movie like this. I think Rose Glass is a director that we're going to see in the years to come as somebody who's going to be putting out some really, really, really great content.
Nice.
Yep.
Next, we have Outlaw Posse. This is written and directed by Mario Van Peebles.
Yeah.
And if you remember the original Posse, this is a big reason why I wanted to see this. I enjoyed the first Posse, and this. So let me give you a couple
Please,
stats.
you start.
Yeah, this got a 6.3 on IMDb.
No, I
Not
got a 5.9.
It's up to 6.3.
Whoa.
I'm
It's
looking at it right now. I'm looking
like
live.
stocks. It's like apples. It's like
Yeah.
Apple stock.
53 Metascore. Um, I'm going to use my words. This is a genre film, right? This is not to me for all consumption, but if you're a Western fan and you love just watching Westerns, I think this movie is solid within that genre. This is not like to me like a full release type of a film. You know what I mean? Like Tombstone or 310 to Yuma. I'm not going to even compare it to that because it doesn't have that same kind of budget.
And nor should you.
Nor should you. I enjoyed the movie overall. I thought there was times when the movie kind of stepped outside of its budget a little bit, and it's like a couple CG like terrible CGI moments, and it's like don't even do it. It just doesn't look good. Like be clever with what you have. You know what I mean?
Right.
I enjoyed the tale overall, but it wasn't a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination. Like I said, this is a genre film that I thought worked. I love watching westerns, so I enjoyed
Totally.
that. I enjoyed it. There's some great shots, and overall, I thought the story worked okay,
Right.
but not a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination. So I only recommend this to you if you're kind of a western junkie. Then I think it's I think it's a above average film in that way. But this is not for everybody. If you're not a western fan, I wouldn't bother.
Don't even bother. Yeah, I mean, the problem with this film is it's not the story. For me, it was the acting. And you bring in all of these big stars who aren't even big stars anymore. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
You got Edward James Olmos, who's phenomenal, but he's not relevant. You bring in Whoopi Goldberg, who's phenomenal, but she's not relevant. Cedric the Entertainer, the same, and we can keep going down the list. I felt like when I started watching it, all of a sudden I'm watching Mario Van Peebles and I'm like, is he doing Jules from Pulp Fiction? Like, is this like a really bad impression of Samuel L. Jackson's character in Pulp Fiction, and then all of a sudden this other black guy shows up, and he's like the worst Chris Tucker impression that I've ever heard in my life, and I couldn't get into the story because I felt the performances weren't authentic.
Yeah.
I felt that this movie lacked authenticity in the characters. I thought they were trying to be other people to
Version.
tell a really good story. It's a good story. The
Yeah.
performances were really bad. They
Yeah.
were mimics of amazing characters, and I,
Yeah.
I
I
was
heard that.
disappointed.
Yeah. And some of them were a little wooden, where it's just like you're saying. I think, and to me, you can edit around some of this stuff too. But I think it's like they spent the money on, like you're saying, these great actors, but then they weren't the pivotal roles, and then the other roles were left with people, I think, that were, like I said, outside of their means. And so yeah.
Damn! Like all of a sudden, this guy shows up out of nowhere. It's like, damn! But like, oh, it's really bad.
But
Great story. Good story.
Mario Van
Western
Peebles looks amazing in
stories,
the movie, by the way. Like, he looks like he's 40 years
Western
old.
stories are phenomenal, and this
Yeah.
is not. And this was a good story. It just was not well executed at all.
Yeah, I think like you're saying, I think the casting actually could have been better. Um,
No, not even the casting. I think that those actors could have done something amazing for this role. They just
yeah.
chose to do
Well,
something
yeah.
that was different. I thought they were all great, good actors. I mean, they're all really good actors.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have Cold Meat. Pete, I know nothing about this movie.
Oof. Yeah, this movie was brought to my attention as like one of the upcoming horror thriller movies of 2024, and I watched it. This is directed by a gentleman named Sebastian Drouin. The only real significant character is a guy named Alan Leach. If you've watched Downton Abbey, he plays Tom Branson. So you've seen this character before, you've seen this face before. This is a movie about a serial killer who ultimately gets his next victim into a car, and now they're trapped in a massive blizzard. And so they're stuck in this car. Um, that alone would have sold me with this story, and it would have been a phenomenal movie. Like, how does a victim who finally escapes but is now in control of the serial killer, because she ultimately becomes the one in power, but then they've added like a spiritual, supernatural element to it that just absolutely wasn't necessary. Like, you could have done this film as just what I just described. A victim who is abducted. Now she's trapped in a snowstorm inside of a car with her killer, but now she's got control. That's amazing. That's an amazing story. But then they threw in this supernatural element, which really just took it from, this could have been a 6 down to like a 5 or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go into it with not a lot of expectation, because this really just had a lot of potential, and it really didn't pay off.
Awesome. Well, that's going to wrap it up for our episode today. Next week, we have Arthur the King, which stars Mark Wahlberg, coming out. We also have Knox Goes Awry, and that's the new film directed by Michael Keaton with Al Pacino. And
Can't wait for that.
Yeah. And lastly, we have American Society of I can't even read. Of
Magical Negroes.
The Magical Negroes, yeah. And so that's supposed to be pretty funny. That
looks amazing.
Yeah, that's supposed to be pretty funny. So looking forward to those. Thanks for tuning in. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe. We appreciate all you. And with that, Pete, that is a cut. Thanks, guys.